smile on my face. Welcome to Vulcan 3D Printing, where we do 3D printing projects ranging from movie props, weapon replicas. You kind of think of it, we'll try to do it. Today I want to go over the Infinity Gauntlet. It's from Avengers Infinity War, and also from Avengers Endgame. It's a really cool kind of prop, but one of the cool things about it is the fact that most of the other ones you can find or buy, or they're just like closed fists that just can't do anything or have no function or have no electronics in there. They're just kind of really basic. The other ones are the Marvel Legends. The Marvel Legends line of gauntlets that you actually like pull on individual like little hooks on the bottom, and they'll like articulate the fingers, but it's not like the right size of your hand, or basically it's just a one-size-fit-all kind of solution for this thing. So I want to do something a little different, put a little different spin on it. So I actually 3D printed off the gauntlet that fit my hand properly, and put electronics in so that you can activate each one of the individual stones, and instead of just having one big switch on the bottom that turns them all on. Thought it'd be more fun to do that, have to play with some more jokes, but it was a pretty fun. We brought it to the Planet Comic-Con, got a lot of positive feedback on it, so I'll talk about that in the next segment, so let the time lapse start right about now. So now that we have the Infinity Gauntlet all printed out and ready to go, the next step is actually doing the gems. There are kind of a couple ways you can do the gems, whether you want to do them in like when you buy just these gem whatever. Then you buy these stones that you can actually be able to do the Joann's, any kind of the hobby store, Hobby Lobby, or wherever, any hobby stores you can find. Or doing something a little different, which is what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to kind of 3D print out my own gems. The model that I actually used to print this off came with some, but in working with it, it was kind of the gems didn't really want to be printed right. I didn't like the look of them. They looked like they were just melted pieces of plastic that were kind of like heated up the bottom. You turn it over and it's kind of dripped down. Wasn't a fan. So what I did instead is actually design my own gems based on the geometry of the hole, and then I actually used the Matter Hackers mold lay, I believe it is mold lay 3D printing material, and it's actually 3D printed out my own molds. These actually turned out really well. One of the biggest things about it was that we were able to get really pretty smooth internal surfaces on the actual molds themselves. They aren't perfectly smooth like you would hope they'd be, but they were relatively pretty close to being perfectly smooth. And from that, we used a 2-part epoxy that allowed us to actually get the correct gems and the correct colors we wanted. What we did is we actually took you mixed the epoxy together, then you would have put like a couple of drops or just the tiniest amount of either food coloring or clothing dye, based on whatever color you actually want to end up using. So once you get that all done, you pour them all in there, and then you can kind of get these little gemstones. As you can see right here, here's kind of like the green one. This one actually was one of the failed ones we did. It was just not green enough for my personal taste. Just didn't look green. It looked really clear when you actually get light through it. Then we had the purple one, Power Stone, and then we had the Reality Stone here. These are kind of all in different stages of how we actually pulled them apart. The Power Stone, if I can hold it. The Power Stone itself actually still has a little bit of the rim on the outside of it, because what we did is we actually poured it over, and sometimes, occasionally, the epoxy resin would actually go over a little bit, which can cause a problem in the long run. But you have to have a little bit of a lip on there. But once you get the lip all taken down, you actually kind of have it in this stage that the time stone's actually in. This time stone is. What you have to do after that is you have to sand it down. That gets rid of that middle seam line in there, which will make the gem look a little more uniform, a little smoother, just make the whole thing just look cleaner. Then that'll get you up to where the Reality Stone is. Seen here, I think it's the Reality Stone, or yeah, that's the Reality Stone. It was red or orange because there wasn't enough dye in there. We took a lot of trial and error on getting the correct amount of dye versus the correct amount of resin to get in there. It was just a really fine line. But once you have it in the sanded state, it kind of loses its shine to it. So what we did after that is we'd actually put a small coat of resin back over the top of it. It would pop, make the gems really pop again, and just make it look like it was more crystal clear. Now that you have all that printed out, next thing you do is put in electronics. As you can see here, we have our knuckle piece, the hand piece that sits in there with all the gemstones placed in there. To get most of them, all the knuckle stones, what you have to do is you actually have to wire in all of your surface buttons onto like this internal lip right in here. And so that what happens is, unfortunately, when I went to close my hand with this design, I couldn't actually close my fist. But the original goal was to put the buttons in the fingers. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that based on just how far I can pull them in on, and just the material that we're using for the glove part of this thing, which I'll show you here in a little bit. But you're able to put the 4 of the stone, or the 4 of the buttons on the inside of this. When you actually have the unit on, you actually flex your hand outward. They'll actually cause them to turn on the buttons, and you can kind of like force one or the other, or you'll feel it as it is. Hard to describe, but once you get the feeling down, you'll be able to activate most of them just on their own, individually. The last 2 are the time stone. Time stone, I epoxied the button on the inside of the thumb, so that whenever you did, you actually like had to pull your thumb in a little bit, then press up. It caused the time stone to actually activate. And the last one is the Mind Stone. The Mind Stone was the trickiest because there was no hand to activate it. There was no fingers to do anything. So what I did was I actually placed it, in the back of this actual the knuckle piece. So this actually allowed you to, when you flex your hand, you'll actually like pull your hand in, and you'll actually pull this whole unit kind of toward yourself, and you actually hit the button. Now, as long as you flex or you're just pressing on the top of it, it'll actually activate just the Mind Stone itself on its own. A lot easier than it sounds. Again, it's all a matter of, once you learn it, just playing with it and figuring out where you want it to be, and based on your hand as a whole. So, the last thing that we had to do special for this whole unit is actually the glove. We actually made our own glove just out of some stretchy material that we could find at Joann's in this case. We actually were also able to paint it with the same gold that we actually made the gauntlet in, so that it kind of hid a little bit more, so like at a glance you wouldn't notice this black glove just sitting underneath it or some other random color glove you can find. So now the next step after this is actually getting it so that I can actually put it on and show you how I actually put it on and how it actually works. Alright, so I have all of my stuff set up on this thing over on my little rack over here. So I'm going to show you the steps and the order of process you have to put them on. One of the biggest keys of this is... You fell. Just come on, work with me, not against me. Hopefully that's worked. One of the biggest keys to keeping up the forearm part is we actually put foam padding on the inside of it. We cut it to length and shoved it up in there. We actually made sure that we were actually able to put Velcro and actually were able to move the foam padding. For whatever reason in the future we wanted to replace it, just to make it so it was easier and had like a spot it would fit into, just make life easier. The other thing about it was we actually installed a battery pack into the forearm section. This allowed us to still have more motion, more freedom in the hand section of it. But overall, it just made it to be a lot easier to assemble and put together. So now, the first thing, at least in the way that I'm doing it, that you have to actually put on the glove, the gauntlet, is to put on the glove. Glove just goes on like any normal glove. You know, nothing crazy, nothing weird. I didn't notice this, but I brought this glove to the gauntlet to Planet Comic-Con. You can actually see where like the buttons wore into all the paint off of it. It's kind of interesting. I didn't notice that before. Oh. All right. So first thing you do is obviously the forearm section. You can get your hand in there. You kind of have to squeeze it tight, but you can get it in. And this is actually won't move all that much. So the next section after that is the hand. Don't do it that way. This is kind of the tricky part with the length that I chose of my wiring. Because based on how tight it is, I have to actually push in the wrist or the forearm section. This will allow me to kind of like push down the wiring. This is the hardest part of the whole thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I did this like 4 times before I took to turn the camera on. It worked fine, no problem. Slid right down. The nice thing about the packing foam is I'm actually able to pull on the foam and actually like compress to give me more room on one side. So one of the biggest keys about this is to make sure that you actually put connectors between your battery and the gauntlet itself. Just makes it easier, so if you have to switch it off, you can take it off, give it to your friend, and you'll find batteries if you're doing something or who knows what. It just makes it a lot easier instead of having to be constantly tethered to the gauntlet that's on your wrist and taking everything off. It just makes it be more mobile and easier to change out. User friendly, that's the word. Alright. Now that you got your battery pack all wired up, I want to make sure that it actually works. Cool, it's all working for me. Then you got to shove it all back up in your wrist section. Because of the fact that there's a little like lip in there, you'll start to feel the wires at the very beginning, but it'll slowly go away as you get up in the correct spot and actually like keep it from falling out of the bottom without actually putting any like fasteners in it, so you can just easily pull. The next section are these 2 wrist components. They go right here on the gauntlet, on the forearm section. The reason why you don't put them in until now is just because it makes it easier to put the wiring down in there and get your hand up through the bottom of it. So we used Velcro to attach them on so that it'd be easy to remove and doesn't require any crazy tooling or magnets to hold it in place for whatever reason. Now next to the fingers. So what we did, as you can see on each of the main joints, right up in here, we have Velcro pieces put on, and on the fingertips of each one we have them put on. The goal was originally to try to make it so that I could just like put it on. That did not work very well, and a lot of attempts, but nothing that. Alright, so apparently my camera decided to die. I was putting on my fingers. So, that being said, let's I'll go back to that point and we'll restart this video. So at the point where I left it off, I actually just attach all these fingers. What you'll do is you'll actually put them in sideways and slide them down and turn them. That will actually make sure that the top fingertip Velcro won't attach to the lower part, on the lower part of the finger, and that'll just make it a little easier to put together. Then the last step after that, you can't forget your thumb. What is this? This is probably not on screen. I don't know. I can't tell. I'm using the phone. But you can have your thumb there. So once you put that on there, you'll slide that guy, Velcro it right onto there. Then you'll put the thumb piece right on the end of your thumb. And now you have a finished Infinity Gauntlet. So the cool thing about it is that over time, as you do it, you'll get better at clicking all the buttons. One of the hardest ones for me to hit. Let me see if I can do it on its own. Come on. It's hard for me to hit on its own is the Space Stone. But like the Power Stone is probably one of the easiest ones for me to do. The Reality Stone is another easy one, and the Soul Stone is pretty easy. Mind Stone obviously is just going haywire. But you kind of get used to it as you will. I'm sorry, I was thinking in there on how to actually turn them on. The Time Stone is a little tricky for me. I can actually pull my thumb back into the gauntlet. Pull the thumb back into the gauntlet a little bit. I'm sitting down here going, oh, I can do it. Into the gauntlet a little bit, and you can actually hit that button. It's right here on your thumb. Overall, I didn't have any huge problems. There's a couple things that I would do personally if I was going to redo this print. Is I'd make the knuckle section just a little bit larger. That'll actually allow your pieces to not wear as much of the paint. You can kind of see the blue here and all the other colors here, just based on sitting in there wearing over time, and as you hit it, you might be able to get more away from that, or be lower on the unit. There was a little bit of wear on the bottom of the hand piece based on just like when I go here to do something, or when I rotate the glove, the gauntlet, because since I do have wrist motion in it that a lot of other printed versions don't have, it kind of wore a little bit. But overall, it held up really well for a full day at Comic-Con. Not Comic-Con, but Planet Comic-Con, that's the Kansas City version. It was a lot of fun. We got a lot of cool responses. We got to see a lot of people who were dressing up as Thanos, and they had kind of a normal one. I kind of came in with this crazy cool one. And unfortunately, we couldn't let them wear it because I couldn't take it off. That's kind of one of the hopes. I was going to be able to let at least people try it on. But yeah, overall, I love this print. It's probably one of my favorite ones. It's definitely one of the more complicated ones I've done. But overall, if you guys can comment and like and subscribe on this channel. We actually had a comment for actually making the Infinity Gauntlet. I believe it was on Spider-Man's helmet. But overall, I really loved doing this print. It was one of my favorites, and I hope to keep making videos for you guys and kind of seeing other cooler stuff that I can do, and put a little bit of instead of just pulling an item offline, just printing it off and kind of keeping it basic. Do something like this where it's a little more engineering that's involved with it to do something a little crazier. So. Alright, well, I appreciate your guys' time, and thank you very much for watching.